So it was spring in 2021, and it was right around this time of year, dreary, winter part 8, and I was exhausted. I had just finished my first year of graduate school, and it had been entirely online, and so the endless hours of speaking to my classmates only through a screen had just worn me down. In the past, I probably would have had something productive or enlightening to do during the upcoming summer, but it was nearly May and I was just stumped. So suddenly, through a flurry of emails and a really quick Zoom interview, it was decided that I would be the garden goddess for that summer at the 12 in-ground garden beds behind the dean's house at my graduate school. With the overly enthusiastic endorsement of the garden's longtime keeper, Leslie, I accepted the role as something to do, which might bring some satisfaction for the summer ahead. The thing is, I am not a talented or particularly dedicated gardener. I am forgetful about watering plants. I'm skeptical of a number of vegetables. I don't particularly enjoy getting my hands dirty. My arms tend towards noodly rather than strong. I'm not even outdoorsy. Like most hobbies, however, I guess enjoyment doesn't come solely from being predisposed towards something, but from the lessons you learn along the way, I guess. So, over the course of the summer, I came to enjoy rooting through the abandoned garden beds for rocks, pulling out impressive sticks from the large trees above, and hacking away at the invasive plants which had been allowed to take over while students and staff alike had been away from the campus. I puzzled over decades-old vegetable seeds in the garden shed. I built complex and ineffective rabbit-proofing schemes around the small seedlings which reluctantly grew under my care. I watched a pack of 13 baby turkeys wander over the garden plots. I hid from the larger adult male turkeys who looped their necks around one another and yelled. So at the end of the summer, I found myself immersed in the routines of the garden and still unable to answer the frequent and kind question of, "Oh, what are you harvesting?" The truth was, we really weren't harvesting anything at all. A few herbs, maybe. Some Swiss chard, which had been given more than double its harvest in 50 days, prediction. The soil quality was poor. The plants didn't get enough sun or enough time in the short New England growing season, and it rained 12 inches in July alone. Thunderstorm after thunderstorm rolled through. Our irrigation system was a grumpy mystery to all of us. I think we drowned some herbs one morning when the irrigation turned into a fire hose of uncontrollable volume. The rabbits, while extremely cute, tended to outwit me entirely and had more than their fair share of tender carrot tops and baby lettuces. So at the time, I felt a little sheepish. A whole summer spent without growing anything? Could that really be the case? So I took some time to make sense of it all. The thing is, I felt satisfied despite such a literally fruitless venture, and I was puzzled as to why. Could it be that this was the feeling of vindication of avoiding responsibility and productivity entirely? Was this allowable? But soon an alternate explanation dawned on me. It turns out that instead of growing plants, we were growing community. Let me explain. Throughout the summer, the school's maintenance staff had stopped by to lend their ladders to the endless vine control effort, and we chatted about their gardens at home, their families. I made good friends with the residents of the neighboring apartments and spent afternoons painting garden stakes with children who were infinitely curious and enthusiastic about what we might be growing. I had gotten a little stronger from shoveling 3 cubic yards of compost into the beds and diligently mixing it in. New friends who I had previously only met on Zoom stopped by to enjoy the shade and the outside space. And when a group of new students took over the care of the garden in the fall, the soil was in better shape and the shed was well organized for their efforts. We harvested plenty, if you look at it in those terms. My Unitarian Universalist communities have taught me to look at the bounty of our connections rather than the quantifiable success of what we grow or harvest. I remember as a middle schooler, we cooked only somewhat edible pancakes for a congregational breakfast one week. As we giggled in the church kitchen, we decided to make one giant vegan pancake rather than a few individuals. Regrettably, we put butter in the pan first, and so a true, useless monstrosity was born, totally inedible on the vegan front, as well as deeply undercooked and kind of malformed. No vegans came to the breakfast, and so we youth split it amongst ourselves, eating happily with our hands after we had served the rest of the congregation. We felt satisfied, fed in both our connection and our bodies. These are the spaces where I learned how to show up with all of my imperfections and my boldness. I remember being 15, sharing my credo or my statement of belief that I had written following my participation in our UU Coming of Age program. I believe I said something about how it is our communities which give meaning to our lives, not because of what we bring to them, but because of how we are together. That was the same day when I became a member of my home congregation, an easy and natural commitment, which felt like a continuation of the encouragement and support I'd always received. I'd been nourished to be my full self from the start there. From a precocious kid to a young adult who has been believed into being the person I am today. So after that summer fell away, that summer of gardening, and the next school year progressed, I took little notice of the garden as it hid under blankets of snow. And so it was an utter surprise when the garden remembered me. The following May, 9 months after I had spent time with the soil, my phone pinged, and I looked down to find an email entitled, "Beets." It was from Leslie, the garden keeper who had hired me the previous summer. Curious, I opened the email. The text read as follows, but with more capital letters. "You will not believe it, but the beet seeds you planted last summer, they produced. Today we began putting the greens in the garden, and when digging in the soil, found these. Do you believe it?" 6 exclamation points followed. Attached to the email were 3 pictures of dirt-covered, freshly harvested beets, about this big. They had been in the garden all fall, winter, and spring, growing, despite my deep belief to the contrary. And so, if you want to, I encourage you to take a moment right now to think about what seeds you're planting whose harvest is going to take a long time. What are you crafting inefficiently as you might so that you can find space for true renewal? In the meantime, before these hopes bear fruit, please know that showing up as you are still contributes to the work of building a community of real connection and world-changing love. Even those practices which are slow and unremarkable right now have within them the potential to make an impact, or the impact might just be in their simple presence. While we can all imagine more bounty in our communities in years to come, take the chance right now to look around. I mean it, like look around. Look at your neighbors, your community of faith, each of you supporting and being supported. This is our bounty, gathered each week from our own lives into this beloved, nourishing community.
Now is the time